Hello, friends. Welcome to Beyond the Pages Legends, where we bring you a new and inspiring audiobook every day. So subscribe and listen to today's special audiobook. Have you ever thought that there could be a person who did not write even a single letter in his entire life? But today, books are studied in the world's largest universities in his name. A person who looked very ordinary, neither a king nor a commander. Yet even today, 2,500 years later, his name is taken at the top among the greatest thinkers of the world. Yes, we are talking about Socrates, i.e. Socrates, a name that became synonymous with philosophy and knowledge. This audiobook, friend, is going to be a bit long, because summing up the life of Socrates and his thoughts in a few minutes is like filling the ocean in a glass. So I request you to share or save this video somewhere first, so that you can listen to it comfortably at intervals. Every chapter will take you to a new depth. So fasten your seatbelts and come with me to the street of Athens about 2,500 years ago and meet the great man who said that an unexamined life is not worth living. Chapter number 1, the mysterious man, Socrates, a man who never wrote anything, and yet the world learns from him. Imagine you are present in a busy market of ancient Athens. There are beautiful marble buildings all around. People are walking around in silk and cotton clothes. Merchants are selling their goods and politicians are giving speeches on democracy. In this crowd you see a strange man. His feet are bare, clothes are simple and old. His face is not very attractive. Nose is not shaved and eyes are very big. He does not look like a rich merchant, neither a powerful leader. He just goes up to people and starts asking them very strange questions. He asks a cobbler what is justice. He asks a general what is courage. He asks a politician, what does it mean to be a good citizen? At first, people try to answer him, but all their answers turn out to be hollow in front of his questions. That man makes people realize that what they thought was knowledge is actually just their opinion. It is their perception, not the truth. This was Socrates, a man whose job was to attack people's arrogance of knowledge. The most surprising thing is that Socrates himself never wrote anything. Not a single book, not a single letter, not a single line. So then the question arises that how do we know so much about him? The answer to this is hidden in his disciples, especially in Plato and Xenophon. Plato, who himself became a great philosopher, was so influenced by his teacher Socrates that he made Socrates the main character in many of his books. The dialogues written by Plato are the windows through which we can peek into the world of Socrates. But this is where a very important puzzle comes up, which scholars call the Socratic problem. The puzzle is how much of Plato's words are Socrates, and how much Plato himself. Did Plato write exactly what Socrates said, or did he put his own thoughts in front of the world to the mouth of his teacher? This is a question for which no definite answer has been found till date. It is as if you are studying someone's biography, which has been written by his biggest fan. Obviously, there will be some adulteration in it, but despite this mystery, one thing is clear. Socrates was not an ordinary man. He was a gadfly for Athens, a fly which does not let the horse sleep by stinging it repeatedly. It keeps it awake. Socrates used to sting the people of Athens society with his questions. He tried to wake them up from the sleep of their ignorance. He used to say that he is the most intelligent person because he knows that he does not know anything. Just think how deep self-confidence a person would have who can accept in a crowded gathering that he does not know anything. In today's era where everyone is trying to prove themselves special, this philosophy of Socrates gives a very important lesson. He did not claim to impart knowledge. Rather, he used to say that he is like a midwife who does not give birth to a child but helps in giving birth. Socrates also used to help bring out the truth from the thoughts present in people's minds through his questions. This habit of his, this way of his started to irritate the great scholars and leaders. When someone questions your years-old beliefs, it is natural to get angry. This is what Socrates was doing. He did not ask questions to humiliate anyone. His purpose was just to search for the truth, a collective search. He was very popular among the youth. The young men of Athens used to follow him, to see how Socrates shuts up the great people with his questions. This was like entertainment for the youth, but it had become a threat for the powerful people of Athens. They felt that Socrates was inciting the youth. They were turning him against traditions and gods. He started to see the foundations of his power shaking. An ordinary-looking man Without any position or money became a challenge to the whole of Athens just on the basis of his mind and tongue. So what was so special about this ordinary-looking man of Athens that both his friends and enemies could not forget him, and why the people of his own city started hating him so much that they sentenced him to death? To know the answers to these questions, we will have to go to the streets of Athens of that time. We will have to understand the environment in which Socrates was breathing. What was the reason that made a philosopher a criminal? To unveil all these mysteries, you will have to go with me to the next chapter. Let's start the next chapter where we will know the story of the city that made Socrates and also destroyed him. Chapter number 2 of Socrates' Athens is the city that made Socrates and then poisoned him. Behind every great story, there is a major hand of its time and society. To understand Socrates, we will have to understand the Athens in which he lived. This was not any ordinary time, friend. This was the golden age of Athens. The golden age of Athens. Under the leadership of leaders like Pericles, Athens had become the center of art, culture, architecture, and democracy. Magnificent buildings like the Parthenon were being built. Playwrights like Sophocles were writing their best plays, and for the first time in history, a system was being created where even ordinary citizens could participate in governance. Democracy was born here. It was an environment where new ideas were given space, where debate and argument were respected. This open environment gave a chance to thinkers like Socrates to flourish. If Athens had been a closed society, Socrates would probably never have got a chance to express his views. But every coin has another side. This golden age of Athens was not always like that. During Socrates' life, Athens also witnessed a very destructive war, which is called the Peloponnesian War. This war lasted for several decades between Athens and its enemy city Sparta. This war devastated Athens badly. Its wealth was lost. Thousands of citizens were killed, and there came a time when democracy was removed in Athens and dictatorship was established, which is called the rule of 30 dictators. However, this dictatorship did not last long and democracy returned. But the confidence of the people of Athens was badly shaken. They were now feeling insecure. There was an atmosphere of defeat and uncertainty, and in such an atmosphere people often start fearing new and challenging ideas. They could not tolerate anyone who questioned even their remaining beliefs. Socrates was doing exactly this, and his time had now changed. During this period, another type of teachers were becoming very popular in Athens. They were called sophists. Sophists were professional teachers who taught people the art of giving speeches, i.e. rhetoric, in exchange for money. They believe that there is no one absolute truth. Truth is only that which you can prove with logic. They taught their students how to win any debate, whether it is right or wrong. For them, knowledge was a saleable commodity. Now you think, on one side there were these sophists who were teaching how to win in exchange for money, and on the other side was Socrates, who used to say that he did not know anything, and he did not take even a penny from anyone. For Socrates, knowledge was not something to be sold, but it was a spiritual quest. It was a way to improve the soul. This was a direct ideological clash between the sophists and Socrates. Socrates often challenged these sophists publicly. He would go to them and ask them what is knowledge or what is justice. And with a series of questions, he would prove how hollow these sophists who call themselves wise actually are. This caused a great blow to the reputation of the sophists. Their business was in danger. They started getting irritated with Socrates. They started considering him their enemy. Socrates had started pricking the balloon of knowledge of these sophists with the needle of his questions. He did not take money from people, but he was snatching something from them which was more valuable than money, the arrogance of their false knowledge, and this clash was going to take the form of a huge storm in the future. The society of Athens, which was previously open, had now become suspicious after the war and defeat. Socrates' actions now seemed like an attack on the order of the city. Athens gave Socrates a platform where he could live his philosophy. He could talk to people and talk to them. Socrates could argue and debate. But when Athens itself was in trouble, it began to look at its most unique son with suspicion. The city felt that Socrates' words were misleading the youth, taking them away from traditions. They forgot that asking questions is the soul of democracy. But how did Socrates do this? What was the method by which he could silence great scholars, generals, politicians with just a few questions? After all, What was the magic in his questions? Today the world knows this magic, this method as the Socratic Method. And what is this method? How does it work? We will know this in the next chapter, when we will talk about Socrates' most powerful weapon. Chapter number 3, Socratic Method. The art of extracting truth from a web of questions. So, friends, now we are going to talk about that weapon of Socrates, which was sharper and more effective than any sword or spear. This was not a physical weapon. This was his way of thinking and talking, what we call the Socratic Method today. It is not just asking questions. It is an art of making someone reach the truth through questions. This method is so powerful that even today it is used in the world's best law schools, medical schools, and business schools to improve the critical thinking of students. So let's understand in simple language what it is. Socrates believed that he cannot teach anyone anything. He can only force them to think. His job was not to impart knowledge, but to bring out the knowledge that is already present inside the person. How does this method work? Suppose Socrates meets a general who claims that he knows what courage is. Socrates will say, "Wow, this is a very good thing. I always wanted to know this. Will you teach me what courage is?" The general will answer with great pride, "Courage means to stand at your place in the war, not to run away." Now Socrates' real work will begin. He will say your answer is very good, but is an army that retreats strategically to trap the enemy cowardly? The commander will think and say no. That is a very courageous and wise move. Now Socrates will say that courage does not mean just standing firm. Sometimes retreating can also be courage. So what is courage then? Now the commander will be confused. He will give another definition, and Socrates will then find a contradiction in it and ask another question. This will continue until the commander himself accepts that what he thought was the firm definition of courage was actually incomplete, and he himself does not know exactly what courage is. This process is called elenchus, which means investigation or refutation. Socrates' purpose is not to insult the commander. His purpose is to make him realize his ignorance. Because Socrates believed that the first step in the journey of knowledge is to admit that I do not know. Only when you accept this are you really ready to learn something. As long as you think you know everything, the doors of your mind remain closed to new things. Socrates tried to open these closed doors with the key of his question. First is a destructive phase in which Socrates breaks the false beliefs and incomplete definitions of the other person through questions, as he did with the general. This can be a bit painful because one's ego gets hurt. But after this comes a constructive phase. Once the person admits that he does not know, Socrates starts searching for the truth with him. Now they are not enemies but fellow travelers on the same path. Now both of them will try to find out what the real meaning of courage can be. Perhaps courage is not only found in the battlefield, but also in everyday life. Perhaps courage is also needed to speak the truth. Courage is also needed to oppose the wrong. In this way, the debate starts from a personal claim and reaches a search for a universal truth. You can use this method in your own life as well. The next time you have a strong opinion like money is everything or success means a good job, stop for a moment and ask yourself the Socratic questions. Is money really everything? Do love, health, peace have no value? Can there be a person who has a lot of money but is unhappy? Can there be a person who has little money but is very happy? When you ask yourself these questions, you will realize how simple and incomplete your initial opinion was. You will understand yourself better. That is the magic of the Socratic Method. It takes you on a journey through the outer world, as well as your own inner world. Socrates was not limited to just methods. He used this method to find the answer to the most important question of life. What was that question? It was, what is a good life? And in this search, he said a sentence which is immortal even today. The unexamined life is not worth living. What deep secret is hidden in this one sentence? Why is an unexamined life not worth living? To dive into the ocean of this deep question, you will have to wait for the next chapter. Chapter number 4, an unexamined life. Are you really living your life? The unexamined life is not worth living for a human being. That is, an unexamined life is not worth living for a human being. This is not just a sentence, friend. This is the essence of Socrates' entire philosophy. It is the essence of his life. These are the words he said during his death trial, when he was given the opportunity to remain silent to save his life. He chose death rather than live a life in which he could not question and in which he could not search for the truth. So what does this mean? What is an examined life? Let us unravel this deep thought one by one. Living an unexamined life means living life on autopilot mode. Waking up in the morning, going to work, eating, sleeping, and repeating this cycle every day, without stopping for a moment to think, why am I doing all this? What is the purpose of my life? Am I happy? What are my values? Am I being a good person? This is a life in which we just follow the rules and notions given to us by society, family, or friends, without examining them. We do the same job that seems safe to us. We follow the same traditions that we have been taught. We run after the same things that everyone is running after: money, fame, power. In this kind of life, we are not working like a human being, but like a machine. We are living, but we are not aware. According to Socrates, the most important difference between humans and animals is that humans have capacity for reason and self-awareness. We can question ourselves. We can reflect on our thoughts. And if we are not using this capacity, we are wasting the most important feature of our being human. Living an examined life means taking care of our soul. For Socrates, the soul was more important than the body and wealth. And how is the soul taken care of? It is like examining your thoughts, your desires, your actions daily, and asking yourself, what I did today, was it right? What I thought today, was it noble? Am I becoming a slave to my fears and my desires? This is a kind of mental and spiritual audit. Think about it. We get our vehicles serviced. We get our bodies medically checked. But how often do we get our souls, our minds serviced? This is what Socrates is asking us to do. This process is not easy. When you start to examine your life, you will find many things you will not like. You will see your weaknesses, your fears, your mistakes. It is like looking at yourself in the mirror without any makeup on. It can be uncomfortable. Perhaps that is why most people choose to live an unadorned life, because they do not want to face this uncomfortable truth. But Socrates says that it is only by going through this process that you can live a better, more virtuous, and more truthful life. Unless you know what is wrong with you, how will you cure it? So how can you examine your life? It starts with small questions. Ask yourself everything you do. Why am I doing this? Ask yourself everything you believe in. Do I have a strong basis for this belief, or have I just taken it for granted? Examine your relationships. Examine your habits. Examine your dreams. Are your dreams really yours, or have they been imposed on you by society? Are your relationships making you a better person? Are your habits taking you towards your goals or away from them? Have you ever stopped and thought about what are the most important values in your life? Truth, love, money, justice, or something else? If you have thought about it, then do tell us in the comments. This introspection was the most important religious act in the eyes of Socrates. But when you evaluate your life, you also need a standard of right and wrong. What was that standard for Socrates? How did he decide what is good and what is bad? The answer to this is hidden in another revolutionary idea of his. Virtue is knowledge. This idea seems as simple as it is deep. And why was it so controversial? Why did people say that this statement of Socrates doesn't apply in real life? To solve this puzzle, we have to go to the next chapter. Chapter number 5. Virtue is knowledge. Can someone be bad intentionally? Socrates' answer will surprise you. Now we have come to one of Socrates' ideas, which is perhaps his most debated and most misunderstood idea. This idea's virtue is knowledge, and its opposite vice and evil is ignorance. That is, virtue is knowledge and vice, or evil is ignorance. This sounds very strange when heard for the first time. This means that no human being does anything wrong or bad intentionally. Whatever bad he does it only because he does not know what is right. Now you will say, how is this possible? We see with our own eyes every day that people deliberately steal, lie, cheat. They know that they are doing wrong. Still they do it. So was Socrates wrong, or are we misunderstanding the meaning of his word knowledge? Let us unveil this mystery. When Socrates uses the word knowledge, he does not mean mere bookish information or memorizing facts. What we call information in today's language was not knowledge for Socrates. For him, knowledge meant understanding something in its entirety and depth, a true and deep understanding. For example, A smoker has the information that smoking cigarettes is harmful for health. It is also written on the packet. But does he have true knowledge of this? According to Socrates, no. Because if he really knew from the depths of his soul how smoking is destroying his body, his life, his family, then he would never smoke. His knowledge would be so powerful that it would overpower his wrong desire. So when a person smokes despite knowing that it is bad, Socrates would say that he does not really know. His knowledge is only true, not deep. Socrates believed that every human being always wants good for himself at the level of the soul. Everybody wants to be happy. Everyone wants to be in bliss. Nobody chooses misery or pain for himself. When a person steals, he is not looking at the evil consequences of stealing. At that moment, he considers only the money or goods he gets by stealing as his goodness or happiness. He is ignorant. He does not see that in exchange for this little happiness, he is losing his integrity, his honor, his peace of mind, and, if caught, his freedom, which are much more important and lasting happiness. So he made a bad deal for himself because he was ignorant. He knew the difference between good and evil, but he did not know the ultimate good. This idea leads to a very profound consequence. If evil is just ignorance, then instead of hating criminals, we should teach them, educate them. In Socrates' philosophy, the purpose of prison should not be to punish, but to reform. A criminal is not a devil. He is just a human being with a sick soul who has wandered in the darkness of ignorance. He needs to be shown the light. He needs to be given knowledge. This is a very humane and revolutionary idea, especially in those times when the law of tit for tat prevailed. Socrates was saying that we should fight not with the actions of people, but with their ignorance. We should make the system such that it helps people to become virtuous and knowledgeable. But this idea is also criticized a lot. Aristotle, who was a disciple of Plato, also questioned this. He gave the concept of akrasia, or lack of willpower. He said that many times it happens that we know what is right, but our desires or emotions become so dominant that we are unable to stop ourselves. Like a Dieter knows that eating cake is wrong, but he is unable to stop himself. This is a debate that is still alive in philosophy. Is evil ignorance or lack of willpower? What do you think? Can a person deliberately choose evil? Do share your opinion in the comments. Socrates' answer was that if someone really gets complete knowledge, then he can never be wrong. He cannot choose a path. His knowledge will become his guide. And Socrates had made it his life's mission to give this knowledge to people and to take them out of their ignorance. But when you keep telling people again and again that they are ignorant, they will not love you. This very mission of Socrates started to seem unpleasant to him in the eyes of the power of Athens. He was a reformer, but people started looking at him as a troublemaker. He had become a gadfly. What was this gadfly? And how did it trouble the horse of Athens? We will know in the next chapter. Chapter number 6, the gadfly of Athens, the voice that started to prick the power. Imagine a huge, lazy, and fat horse who, despite his strength, just wants to be lazy, and then a small fly, a gadfly, comes and stings him repeatedly, disturbs him, forces him to wake up and run. Socrates used the analogy of this gadfly for himself during his trial. He said that the state of Athens was like a lazy horse, and that Socrates was a gadfly sent by the gods to keep the horse awake. It was a very apt and powerful metaphor that explained both his job and his end. The job of a gadfly is to sting the horse, to trouble it so that it can become better. But the horse never likes the gadfly. It just wants to kill it and go back to its lethargy. That is what Socrates was doing for Athens. He was stinging the citizens of Athens, its leaders, its poets, its craftsmen, with his questions. He was asking them questions about their most cherished concepts. He was asking them if they really knew the meaning of what they called justice, beauty, truth. Socrates' purpose was not to trouble them. His purpose was to save Athens from becoming morally and intellectually lazy. He wanted the citizens of Athens to be citizens not just in name, but to understand their responsibilities, know your values, and contribute to building a better society. In a way, he had become the conscience keeper of the society. But as it happens when you question the beliefs established by power and the arrogance of people, you make more enemies than friends. Socrates did not have any personal enmity with anyone, but his method was such that people started feeling insulted. Imagine a great politician of Athens who used to give a speech in front of thousands of people. How would he feel when he would be left speechless in front of some of Socrates' questions, and that too in front of a group of youth. He would have felt that Socrates had insulted him in the public gathering. He started hating Socrates. Socrates had made many such powerful enemies. Politicians, poets, and sophists whose business he was getting closed down. These people were looking for an opportunity to get Socrates out of the way. Socrates' work of building the flyover became more dangerous when Athens was politically unstable. The defeat in the Peloponnesian War and the cruel rule of the 30 tyrants had created a fear in the society of Athens. People now began to see any kind of criticism or questioning as an attack on democracy. They felt that this negativity of Socrates and his habit of questioning everything was making the youth rebel against the state. They feared that under the influence of Socrates, the youth would stop respecting the old gods and traditions, due to which the wrath of the gods would fall on the city. Their fear was not baseless either. Many disciples of Socrates, like Alcibiades and Critias, later became the main problem for Athens, although Socrates was not directly responsible for this. But his enemies got an excuse. They started saying that, look, these are the people taught by Socrates who are ruining the city. On one hand, Socrates considered himself the main well-wisher of the city, a doctor who wants to cure the city's disease by giving narcotic medicine. On the other hand, the rulers of the city and many common people started seeing him as a disease, a virus that was hollowing out the rules of society. This was a difference of perspective, not of intentions. Socrates' intentions were good, but his methods were irritating to the people. He wanted to wake up the city, but the city wanted to sleep, and a lazy horse often kills the gadfly that bothers it the most. Athens was also preparing to do the same. A trap was being laid against Socrates, a legal trap in which he could be trapped and silenced forever. But the story of Socrates is not just his. It is also about those people who understood him, listened to him, and made his words immortal. Who were these people? Who were those disciples of Socrates, because of whom we are able to say all these things today? And did those disciples really show Socrates as he was? To know this, let's go to the next chapter where we will meet the most famous disciples of Socrates. Chapter number 7, a guru, whose disciples made him immortal. As we discussed in the first chapter, Socrates himself did not write anything. His story, his thoughts have reached us through the words written by others. The most important among them are his two disciples Xenophon and Plato. If these two were not there, perhaps Socrates' name would have been lost somewhere in the pages of history. But both of them remembered their guru in such different ways that sometimes it seems that they are talking about two different Socrates. The point of view of both of them is important to understand. This is very important to understand because it is from this that our image of Socrates today is formed. First, let's talk about Xenophon. Xenophon was a historian and a soldier. He was a very practical person. Whatever he wrote about Socrates, like memorabilia and apologies, shows a simple, practical Socrates. Xenophon Socrates is a good moral person who gives good advice to the youth. He teaches them to lead a disciplined life and respect their parents. He seems like a traditional Greek teacher in a way, who is just helping people to become a good citizen. In his writings, he is seen trying to protect Socrates from the charges against him. He wants to prove that Socrates was not a dangerous revolutionary, but a respectable and law-abiding citizen. Xenophon Socrates is more grounded, more simple. But then comes Plato, and here the picture changes completely. Plato was not just a disciple. He was a genius philosopher himself. Socrates' death had such a deep impact on him that he devoted his entire life to understanding and carrying forward his teacher's ideas. Plato wrote most of his books in the form of dialogues, and the hero of all these dialogues is the same. Socrates, Plato, Socrates is not just a moral preacher. He is a great metaphysician, a philosopher who discusses deep and complex things like immortality of the soul, the true form of justice, and the theory of forms. This is a Socrates who is much more intellectual, much more mysterious, and much more revolutionary than Xenophon Socrates. Now the question arises that who is the real Socrates? The simple teacher Xenophon, or the great philosopher Plato? Most scholars believe that the truth lies somewhere in between these two. The Socrates seen in Plato's early dialogues, such as Apology Creo Euthyphro, is perhaps closer to the real Socrates. In these dialogues, Socrates uses the same question-answer method and says that he knows nothing. But in Plato's later dialogues, such as the Republic or Phaedo, Socrates begins to talk of grand theories, such as the theory of forms. Most scholars believe that these were Plato's own ideas, which he respectfully made his teacher Socrates say. Plato used his teacher as a character to present his philosophy to the world. So did Plato deceive us? No, it would be wrong to say so. Plato took the seat of Socrates and made it into a giant tree. He took Socrates' spirit of questioning and turned it into an entire philosophical system. Plato tried to answer the questions that Socrates raised. Socrates showed him the door. Plato walked in through that door. Without Plato, Socrates would have remained an interesting but minor historical figure. It was Plato who gave him the philosophical stature with which he is known today. He made his teacher immortal in the world of knowledge. This is a unique story of a guru and a disciple, where the greatness of the disciple secured the legacy of the master forever. But where did Plato get the inspiration to do all this? It came from the tragedy, the injustice that happened to his master. What did the democracy of Athens do to its own greatest philosopher? Now we have come to the most dramatic and tragic turn of that story, the trial of Socrates. The trial in history where truth itself was present in the dock. What were the charges against Socrates, and what did he say in his defense? To know this, you will have to come with me to the next chapter. Chapter number 8, the trial in history, where truth itself was present in the dock. The year was 399 BC. A packed courtroom in Athens. A crowd of 500 citizens is sitting. Who is a judge as well as a judge and is present in the dock? An old man of 70 years, the same bare feet, the same simple clothes. That man is Socrates. This was not an ordinary trial, friend. This was that moment in history where a city was prosecuting its own conscience, its own soul. This was the moment when philosophy and power were present face to face, and the result of this trial was going to change the entire thinking of Western civilization forever. So let's go to that courtroom and see what exactly happened. There were mainly 2 charges against Socrates, which were filed by a young man named Mellitus. The first charge was, Asbia means irreligion. This meant that Socrates did not believe in the gods of the city that Athens worshipped, and that he was creating his own new gods. This was a very serious charge because in ancient Greece it was believed that insulting the gods could bring misfortune to the entire city. The second charge was even more dangerous, corrupting the youth. The accuser said that Socrates, with his words and questions, was inciting the youth of Athens against their parents, society, and the state. He was teaching them to question traditions, which was a major threat to the stability of the city. This charge was a direct attack on Socrates' entire life's work. When it was Socrates' turn to defend himself, he did not do what any ordinary man would do. He did not beg for mercy. He did not present his weeping family before the jury, and neither did he do any legal manipulation to prove the charges against him false. Instead, he did what he'd been doing all his life. He spoke about philosophy. He spoke about truth. His clarification is immortalized in the apology written by Plato. Apology does not mean to apologize. In Greek, it means to put forward one side or defense speech. And the side that Socrates put forward was not a defense in any way but a challenge. He said that he was not insulting any god. Rather, he was following the orders of the oracle of Delphi or the priestess who made the prophecy, who had said that no one is more intelligent than Socrates. Socrates told jury that he started asking people questions to understand the meaning of this prophecy. He wanted to know whether anyone was really more intelligent than him. And in this search, he found out that those who consider themselves intelligent are actually ignorant, and he himself is intelligent because he at least knows that he does not know anything. He said that he is not corrupting the youth, but he is teaching them to do self-examination, which is the most important thing for a human being. It was here that he uttered his famous line, that an unexamined life is not worth living. He told jury that he was like a gadfly to Athens, sent by the gods so that the kingdom does not fall asleep. And if they killed him, they would only harm themselves because they would not find another gadfly like him easily. Just imagine, someone can speak so fearlessly while facing death. Socrates was not trying to please jury. He was trying to teach him. He put forth his life and his mission in front of jury with complete honesty. But his words, his intellectual honesty, were not understood by jury, a common citizen of 500. He found Socrates' attitude arrogant. He felt that this man was not respecting the law, but mocking it. Voting took place and Socrates was found guilty by a very small margin. According to the law of that time, after being found guilty, both the prosecutor and the convict had to propose a punishment, and jury would choose one of the two. The prosecutors asked for the death penalty. Now Socrates had the opportunity to save his life by asking for something lighter, like a fine or exile. But Socrates was Socrates. The entire jury was stunned to hear the punishment he asked for. What did he ask for? He said that in return for this great work of disturbing the city and awakening it, he should not get punishment but a reward. He should be given free food in the Prytaneum, an honor which was given only to Olympic winners and heroes of the city. This was a grave insult to jury. Now jury was left with no option. With an even greater majority than before, he chose death for Socrates. A philosopher who talked about knowledge and virtue all his life was ordered by his own city to drink a cup of poison. But the story does not end here. There was a gap of about a month between the sentencing and the execution of the sentence. What happened in this 1 month? Did Socrates try to escape? What were his thoughts coming so close to death? For this last and most touching journey, let's go to the next chapter. Chapter number 9. The one who did not abandon principles even in the face of death. The verdict had been pronounced. Socrates, that get fly of Athens, was now a criminal who had been sentenced to death. He was put in prison so that he could await his death. The death that was to be given to him was by drinking the juice of a poisonous plant called hemlock. This was not a slow and painful death. Rather, it was a death that would slowly numb the body. But there was a gap of 1 month between the sentencing and the execution of the sentence. This happened because a sacred ship from Athens had gone on a journey to the island of Delos, and until that ship returned, no one could be sentenced to death in the city. How did Socrates spend his time in prison in this 1 month? This was perhaps the most important time of his life, where his actions, not his words, were given the most important test of philosophy. One morning before sunrise, a very rich and old friend of Socrates, Crito, secretly came to his cell. Crito had made all the preparations. He had bribed the prison guards and had also arranged for a ship which would take Socrates to another city far away from Athens. Crito begged Socrates to run away. He gave many arguments. He said, "Socrates, if you die, I will lose my best friend. People will say, what kind of friend am I who could not save his friend even after spending money? Your children will become orphans. Who will take care of them? And most importantly, you are letting your enemies succeed. They only want you to die." Crito's words were very emotional and logical. Any common man would have probably believed him and run away. But the answer given by Socrates is a true example of his character and his philosophy. This entire dialogue has been written by Plato in his dialogue named Crito. Socrates said to Crito, "My dear Crito, your concern is justified, but we should not take decisions by getting carried away by emotions. We should think logically about what is the right thing to do." Socrates said to Crito, "Just think, if I run away from here, what message will I give? I have been talking about justice and respecting the laws all my life. The laws of Athens gave me birth, gave me upbringing, gave me education, gave me the right to marry. I chose to live in this city, made an undeclared agreement to live under its laws. Today, when the same laws are giving a verdict against me, even if that verdict is wrong, should I break them and run away?" Socrates imagined a very powerful thing. He said, "Think, Crito, if we are running away and the laws of the city themselves appear in front of us as a human being and ask us, 'Socrates, what are you doing? Are you trying to destroy the laws that made you?' Does a citizen have the right to accept the decisions of the state whenever he wants and break them whenever he wants?" Socrates explained that it is not right to answer injustice with injustice. Even if the people of Athens have done injustice to him, if he breaks the law and runs away, he will also do injustice. He should not do another wrong to correct one wrong. He said that he has lived his life on principles, and now in the face of death, he cannot abandon his principles. He convinced Crito to accept his decision peacefully, and then the day came. His friends were gathered around him in the prison sad and crying, but Socrates was absolutely calm, as if he was preparing for a festival. He had a long philosophical dialogue with his friends on life after death, on the Amrita of the soul. He explained that a philosopher should not be afraid of death, because death is just the liberation of the soul from the bondage of the body. He said that he was going on this journey happily. When the jailer brought a cup of hemlock, he was also crying. He said that Socrates was the most noble, calmest, and best person of all the prisoners he had ever met. Socrates calmly took the cup and drank it in one swig without any hesitation. He asked his friends to remain calm. Slowly, the effect of the poison started spreading upwards from his feet. His body was becoming cold and empty. In his last moments, he said to Crito, "Crito, we owe Asclepius a cock. Do not forget to repay him." Asclepius was the god of health and medicine. People used to pray to him when they were sick and offer him a cock when they recovered. What did Socrates mean by these last words? Perhaps he was saying that death is a cure from the illness of the body, and now he is cured, and then he became calm forever. A man died, but an idea became immortal. Socrates' death proved to be more influential than his life. But how? Why do we remember Socrates, even after 2,500 years? What is his legacy? We will know this in the last chapter of this audiobook. Chapter number 10, The Legacy of Socrates, who did not die, is still alive in you and me. It has been almost 2,500 years since Socrates died. That golden age of Athens is now confined to history books. Those marble buildings have now become relics. But the name of Socrates is ideas. His courage to ask questions are still alive. In fact, in today's era of noise and explosion of information, Socrates has become more relevant than ever before. His legacy is not limited to just heavy books of philosophy. It is still breathing in our way of thinking, in our education system, and in our principles of justice. Let us see what Socrates gave us and why it is important for us today. The most important legacy of Socrates is the tradition of critical thinking. Before him, knowledge used to come from gurus to disciples and was accepted without questioning. Socrates broke this tradition. He taught us not to believe anything just because someone said it. A great man is saying it, or it has been going on for centuries. Test it on the touchstone of logic. Question it. Investigate it.